All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. This is the latest one. Yes, oh yay. So if you're a long-time listener, welcome back. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. I sit here with my green tea. In fact, it's even not so green, it's more a ginger tea. This is something that I recommend to people because it gets, we call it the fluid and your digestion whole process moving in the right direction. So straight away off the bat, we're going to go into the four main questions I'll be touching on in this week's episode. It is a Q&A from questions I've got asked on social media. It's Colman Power and each and every one of those on TikTok, Colman Power, on TikTok, Colman Power Organic Fitness, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also my website is Colman Power Organic Fitness. Check those out if you haven't already. Retreat coming up very soon, touching in on that down in West Cork. Loads of activities, nothing but organic fitness activities, sun exposure, grounding, yoga, training, workouts. There's a nutritionist involved in on top of that. Then there's also a personal development coach, which I'm working with myself, Joanne, who's also on the podcast there very recently. If you haven't checked out that podcast, I highly recommend you to. So we'll go straight away on in to the likes of these questions. Okay, and if you want your questions shouted out, make sure that you send me in a message, because you get your name called out. Everyone loves a little bit of a cosign, don't they? Okay, first one's in from Paula, in combination to a very similar message from, I hope I don't absolutely make a hash of this name. It's Nerida Hunt, from Facebook and Instagram. So it's, what are your thoughts on protein and how much can we absorb? And then that is very important in the use of the words absorb. So remember that. So protein is the building blocks of every cell in your body. There are 9 essential amino acids. They're something that we have to consume from our diet. You can get them, I prefer them, you can get them supplements, but much prefer you to get them from whole foods. Why? Is they've added advantage of fiber, in particular, more vitamins and minerals, and much more satiating for your body to have foods chewed as opposed to it being in a powdered form. I have no problem with people taking supplements. I currently take supplements myself. I take either some wire, which is an organic plant-based protein. New and Naturals also is something that I do have on a regular basis, and they have a pea protein, which suits me. But remember, it's the one that you are able to digest and is able to help you hit your protein target, which is so important. Okay, I mean that some wire protein, there's BCAAs, which is typically just broken down to branched chain amino acids, and those are in particular the most important ones for building lean muscle tissue. For most people that I train and mentor and coach, that is so important. So the 3 of those are, I've written them down: leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Those are found in all complete protein sources, whether that be tofu, that be tempeh, that be hemp seeds. And on top of that, then have the final one of the plant-based proteins is chia seeds. All things that I have on a regular basis, and even have overnight oats made with chia seeds daily. The whole idea of it is the more protein you get in your diet, coming up towards your target. Okay, and the recommended daily amount for anybody, whether it be training for weight loss, excuse me, would be 1.5 grams per kg. Okay, and then if you're going to the upper end, if you want to cover yourself, in particular to not only building muscle tissue and maintain it, it's recommended 2 grams. So that's 1.5 to 2 grams. So it just makes it easier for the maths as well. So ranging from, if you're 60 kg, that's your target is 120. So if you're 70 kg, it's 140. If you're 80 kg, that's 160. If you do the math, that just makes it easier. And I get people to, I suppose, focusing on their protein, focusing on their fiber. And if you're getting it from plant-based sources, you're an absolute winner. And because of the fiber, and fiber, it keeps you fuller for longer. It's also good for gut health. Gut health is linked with improved energy levels. Why? Because microorganisms are then naturally produced in your gut, and they increase absorption of every other vitamin and mineral that comes down into your stomach. That's why it's important to eat whole foods, because that's what they feed on. They feed on fiber, which is an undigestible carbohydrate. That is important to note. Please eat whole foods. I'm smiling right now, but I really put my hands together and go, do it for yourself. And In on top of that, then other protein sources that you can have: eggs, chicken, fish, meats. But then it's a lot of people ask me the question: are meats bad, or are those items? Do you recommend those? Not all meat is created equally. That is one of the most important things to take away from this podcast. There are poor quality meats, whether it be in sausages. Don't eat sausages. Don't even eat the equivalent of it going to a fast food restaurant. Why? Because firstly, it's poor quality meat. Secondly, it's cooked in unhealthy fats. Typically, vegetable oils have been heated and reheated, which causes oxidative stress on the body, again, which causes negative results on your overall energy levels, because the body doesn't know what to do with it, and then it ends up typically storing it as body fat. That is a killer for yourself, and that's not something I do recommend to anybody. Stick to higher quality meats, whether it be free range being the minimum requirement, organic being the gold standard. Why? Just as a result of animals have higher omega-3 in their diet, due to where does omega-3 come from? It comes from the soil, and then from the fish. Fish are eating smaller algae. Algae are small, and plankton are things that do contain that omega-3, which is what most people need more of in their diet. And when we were touching on getting straight back even more so to the question that was asked by the individuals, the fact is that protein is not just used for muscle repair. It's so important in your diet. It's so important in your diet. Firstly, finding the protein sources that suit you, we just touched on, but it's also used for skin health. It's also used for regulating your hormones. But how much of it do I recommend in your main meals, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Bringing snacks in between. I recommend for people typically to have 3 main meals a day. Why? Because that makes it easier for spreading out your protein and hitting your protein targets and getting you to build on lean muscle tissue mass. So for a rough indication, I tell people to go for estimating 30 grams of protein per main meal. So if you were to use, I'm going to give the example of, for people that eat fish, fish would be the example of 100 grams of fish is about 20 to 25 grams. So you're nearly there. If you had some beans with that, that would be, or lentils even, that would be, beans or lentils would be something that you could definitely incorporate into your diet, because that's only helping you get in protein, but fiber. So that's 20, 25, another 5 grams, we'll say that 100 grams of beans, you'll be at 30 grams of protein. Hemp seeds could be sprinkled on there. You're going up and up and up. That's just 100 grams of meat source. Then if you wanted to go towards tofu or tempeh, we'll go tempeh first. Tempeh, 100 grams of that is 18 grams of protein. So that means you would have to have more either of the beans and or more of lentils, and that would get you still hitting your 30 grams of protein. An example of it for breakfast, we'll put in the example of eggs. So eggs, 1 egg will be 7 grams of protein, 3 eggs will be 21. How else would you do it? You can most certainly add in flax seeds. You could add in chia seeds. Chia seeds are a complete protein, as I said. And then you telling me that, oh yeah, flax seeds, you never mentioned those as a complete protein. That's absolutely fine. We'll add in other nuts to make up the shortcomings in those amino acids found in those foods. So add in some pumpkin seeds that are also high in zinc and do contain protein. That's the added advantage when you are having a whole food approach diet. You can mix and match, pick a mix. You can pick and mix your amino acids. One hand is up here for those people on YouTube, hand together, joining to make all the 9 essential amino acids needed in a day. You don't necessarily have to have them in the same meal, but for me and anybody that I coach, I try and typically do that. Why? Because it makes it easier and kind of get, oh, did I have the pumpkin seeds there for breakfast? Then, oh yeah, I need to have maybe some lentils later on today, and just combining them together in the same meal makes it easier for me, not necessarily essential. So drink of liquid for me, a piece of ginger. And the next question we're going in to is, this comes from Paul from Instagram. How much healthy fats such as flax seeds should we eat in a day? We've touched on flax seeds, and I'm a major believer in them, and I have them regularly in my diet, just due to the fact that they're high in the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Omega-6 is inflammatory, so that means it's something that people need to have in their diet of a small amount. Why? Because the fact that omega-6 and inflammatory inflammation in the body is natural. It actually is something that happens when we either get an injury or we tear muscle fibers. It has to happen for the body to perform at its natural state. But we typically eat too much of the omega-6s. So finding something that is high in omega-3. Flax seeds being one of the best and closest to that ratio, 4:1. Okay, or 1:4. We'll give the example because you say omega-3 to omega-6, so 1:4. And it's not about trying to eat, I suppose, more omega-3 filled foods to bump up your omega-3, because omega-3 is anti-inflammatory. Anti-inflammatory things are super beneficial. Why? Because most people are excessively stressed. Their body needs to reduce inflammation. So how do you do that? Adding in these omega-3 foods. Okay, so we'll touch on organic foods having higher omega-3 than conventional, and as a result of that, then that's helping your ratio get closer to that 1:4. Omega-3 filled foods are chia seeds, flax seeds, we're just touching on in this episode, and we'll also go towards eggs. Why? Because eggs are something that I'm a firm believer in, that are such a natural source of protein before you even lean towards any of your supplements. Why? Because it contains nearly every vitamin and mineral, and it's low carbohydrates. I'm a fan of eggs. You don't have to eat them. There are other options available for vegans that I train on the organic fitness program. And then in on top of that, I would recommend roughly about 15 grams of hemp seeds. 15 grams of hemp seeds is typically getting you close to about 5 grams of protein in a meal. You can sprinkle them into your overnight oats, your porridge. You can put them on to a salad type lunch. And when I say add them to maybe main meals, I don't typically mean to cook them. Why? Because they're low heat, a low smoke point, which is important. That flaxseed oil can be used, but I don't recommend it for cooking. I recommend other oils for cooking your, either be your eggs, I do love eggs, doing your stir fries, or adding to curries. The fact is that I much prefer to use another oil that is extremely beneficial towards your omega-3 omega-6 ratio is extra virgin olive oil. It has antioxidants too, can help the body deal with stress and even relieve pain. And I do have that daily. And the next, but there is a higher smoke point found in extra virgin coconut oil. So it's not that one oil is any better than the other. It's just they're different. It's not like one person is better than the other. They both have bring different things to the table. So you're looking for omega-3 good ratio for cooking oil, go to extra virgin olive oil. Going with a higher smoke point is your coconut oil. Most certainly, it doesn't contain as good a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, but it has a higher smoke point. So that means you can cook at high temperatures. So you can put things and that have been baked into the oven, 180 degrees, such as the oat bars that I recommend to people that also help you hit your protein targets, which we touched on in the first episode. And that whole recipe is on my Instagram if you want to check that out, 100% free. And I definitely have hemp seeds in there too, which is a really good source of healthy fats and protein, and it's low carbohydrates. Those are things people should add into their diet, just due to the fact that most people are not consuming enough protein and they're overeating on carbohydrates. And if you get a food that has a low carbohydrate, it helps you, I suppose, stay within your macros for the day. And macros are protein, fats, and carbs. For those of you who don't know, we touched on that in the previous episode. I'm just pointing over to the left hand side because the sun is coming up as well. Because the fact that it's on a previous episode, left being towards the back, read left to right. So we're going into coming off the back of cheese. Cheese is often mentioned, Colman, as cheese fattening, and this is something that I must stress. Again, cheese is a high protein source. It does contain healthy fats, and not only that, it's a probiotic, which means it's good for your gut health. All the time I'm going to be talking about things for improving your overall health. Not everybody can tolerate cheese, and that's worth noting. But with cheese and any other healthy fats, whether it be flax seeds, whether it be chia seeds, whether it be coconut oil or extra virgin olive oil, they contain 9 kilocalories per gram. And when you're trying to understand foods, write this down: 9 kilocalories for fats, 4 kilocalories for protein and carbohydrates. but they do have different effects on your blood sugar levels. So that's worth noting, and understanding food is so important, because you can pick any diet you want, but it's really about finding things that suit you. And if you are struggling to either lose weight or build muscle, understand the most basic thing at its at ground level. Fats contain more calories. That's worth noting, that a calorie is not a calorie. You need to find them from the best sources that suit you, that you can tolerate. Some people cannot tolerate dairy. Dairy contains a type of sugar called lactose. Lactose can be found in milk products. So a lot of people, such as myself, don't tolerate a lot of dairy. I used to have a lot of eczema. It's high. It can be high in histamines. Histamines can cause mild asthma, which I previously used to have. And also that, I highly recommend you to get organic cheese if you are consuming it on a regular basis. Why? Just because it doesn't contain the likes of antibiotics, because inorganic production of meats or their products such as cheeses or dairy or yogurts or any of those items or butter, you're reducing down the amount of toxins that come into your body. Toxins are never beneficial for you to be consuming, and excessive amount of toxins can reduce your energy levels, can negatively affect your skin health. And skin health is one of the pillars of health wise. It's one of the first things that people look at you. I've only improved, I suppose, my skin. I don't have asthma anymore. I put my hand out. I was thinking it's the next thing I was going to say. I don't have eczema. I've totally improved, I suppose, the complexion of my skin overall, in on top of lifestyle habits such as sunlight exposure, which I'll be doing a separate podcast on completely as well. Because a lot of people are worried about the sun. It is extremely dangerous, but it's more often than not extremely beneficial for the body too. So the thing is, with that lactose that people are suffering with, it's worth writing down again the fact that lactose can be reduced in goat's milk. For those of you that, I suppose, would like and do enjoy some called dairy products, goat's milk is something that you could have a little bit more of, as opposed to a dairy coming from the cow. And I typically would recommend that to people, maybe to wean themselves off dairy for a period of time, and then to try maybe some organic goat's cheese that you can get. And I'm going to be recommending, I suppose, Irish products first, or if you're in America, there's organic goats and dairy that you can get your hands on too. So that's, I suppose, touching on food items that could be incorporated into your diet. And going directly back to the question, is cheese fattening? No, cheese is not fattening. No one single ingredient food is fattening. Cheese, we'll recap it, is high protein. It does contain fats. So it's going to have omega-6 and omega-3 in it. Again, it's going to have a higher omega-3 when you get it organically. And then we're going on to our final question of today's podcast: is still struggling with weight loss plateau. This comes in from Emma on Instagram, and I'm just going to break it down into, I suppose, 3 different topics or sections in this question. So firstly, the intensity of your training. A lot of people mightn't have the intensity that's needed to, I suppose, elevate your heart rate to get yourself into a fat burning zone. And this comes down to people overtraining. It's not about, I suppose, the quantity, it's more about the quality. You need to focus in on higher quality training, using large muscle groups, whether you're training in the gym, whether you're training at home. Use the likes of back exercises. Legs, your largest muscle group in the body. Do squats and increasing the weights. Okay, if you can't increase the weights, you increase the duration. The whole idea is you tear more muscle fibers. When you tear more muscle fibers, you burn more calories. These are simple facts that the bread and butter of, I suppose, either building muscle or losing weight. The whole idea of it is use those large muscle groups, and I focus in on whether I'm in, I suppose, the gym-like scenario. I'm using hypertrophy because that helps the body to maximize the muscle fiber tears, and you change your body composition. Whether if we flip that then in the home session, again, you can, if you don't have the ability to increase the weight, you increase the duration. You go from a 30 seconds to a 40 seconds on the squats, we'll say. So squatting for 30 seconds, you're squatting, and the next week for 40 seconds, you're squatting for 50 seconds, and then you up it to 60 seconds. So incrementally, when I bring people onto the organic fitness program for, we call it 2 weeks, the 6 weeks program that I walk through, it is something that you inevitably go for. The first 2 weeks, you are going 30 seconds on your home workouts, you go to 40 seconds, and then you go up to 50 seconds on the last. And you can incrementally change that up then and add in finishers and cardio at the end. So a lot of people say you can burn more calories in cardio or weights sessions are better. The whole thing about it is if you can do A and you can do B together, well then do just that. I do my weights sessions at the start, whether it be home workout or based in a gym. Typically right now I'm doing a lot of home workouts. And following that, then it's cardio. But it doesn't have to be running. Running is super beneficial. You do burn a high percentage of calories when you run. Why? Because your heart is at an elevated state. But you also do finishers. Finishers that I do are 20 seconds of, we'll call it high intensity, whether it be jumping jacks, whether it be touch squats, whether it be high knees. Those are 3 just quick examples. Or if you're in the gym, you have a cross trainer or a bike, you can also do that for 20 seconds as fast as you possibly can. And this is really important. This helps you tap into your fat stores. So typically finishers, I do them for high intensity so that got my best bang for my buck, elevating my heart rate in the fat burning zone, which is 220 minus your age. So do that, write that down. 220 minus your age is you getting into the fat burning zone. So that means if you are doing a finisher towards, whether it be running, whether it be your HIIT style finishers I'm trying to recommend to you here right now, get your heart rate up as high as you possibly can. Grip my teeth because I need people to push themselves. You give yourself 10 out of 10 when you're doing that training session. Like that is really key. You're going far. I go to beginners I have going for 4 minutes. Then you go 6 to 7 minutes for intermediates, and then advanced I have them going up as far as 10. And then progressively, if you are an intermediate and you want to push yourself a little bit further, you go up to the 10 mark. So that's 20 seconds on, 10-second rest. 20 seconds on, 10-second rest. So that's 2 bouts of that finisher. And it'll be 10 minutes. It's an absolute hell of a finisher to be doing. Okay, and you can get that done in 10 minutes. You could also do the equivalent of a run. It would take double the amount to duration. Why? Because you're at a slower pace. So I prefer to do the high intensity finishers. Some people I do running at the end of their training sessions are focusing in on maybe improving their times, such as for a 5K or a 10K. But the thing is, I work with people to, I suppose, help them, if I finish, get towards their finishing goal of weight loss. With most people I train, it's either one of those 3 things. It's either the intensity, the amount of the days that are training, maybe excessive towards their fitness goal, because some people that I chat to on a regular basis, they may be doing training towards an hour and a half, which in my eyes is very much so too excessive. Okay, minimum requirement for anybody is 20 minutes. You can up it. My sessions right now are for 45 minutes, but they're tough, they're intense, and that's including stretching and warm down there too. So it's more about quality than it is about quantity. You doing your weight training first, tearing those muscle fibers and incorporating in and different style progressive overload, whether it be increased weights and or inevitably you can also change up the tempo and change up the exercises, which would be definitely something I would recommend as well. Because you currently are doing the same training at the same tempo at the same weight, your body can inevitably is going to get used to that. So how can you expect your body composition or your reduction of body fat to change if you're doing the same thing? It's a definition of insanity. You need to most certainly change up something. And that's what happens when you are training with myself. You get different training can incorporate different exercises. You are using maybe the likes of a dumbbell, could you incorporate in a kettlebell? And also in that in itself, the finishers could have added weights as well, maybe a squat press. Then you could also do a burpee press. Why I do the likes of maybe a burpee press? Why? Because it's a full body exercise that everybody is using the most amount of muscles in a given exercise. The more muscles you use, the more calories. When it comes down to a weight loss, it's a numbers game. You have to help yourself get into a calorie deficit. That is the most important thing. But you have to be fueling the body with the right type of fuel in itself. If you have excess amounts of firstly, I'll touch on toxins in your body. That's going to negatively affect your body's overall ability to function at optimal levels. That's why I recommend foods to people on a regular basis that are, excuse me, that are fresh from single ingredients. You focusing in on your diet, it's so important because you cannot out-train a bad diet. There are so many different things you can do in training, change your body composition, improve your mood. because it improves your blood flow, and that just helps an amino acid get tryptophan, get to your brain, and that's where serotonin is produced. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a side note on overall health, and that's why I recommend training. And I also focus in on food. And I don't just know good food, I also grow it. I want people to eat nutrient dense foods, okay, such as high magnesium foods such as kale. You have rocket, arugula, you have rainbow chard in season right now. And when you're doing that, you're inevitably getting magnesium, which helps the body produce energy levels. If you have low energy levels going into your training, you cannot put in maximal effort. That is just something that you have to realize, that you need to be eating enough foods. Most people that I train are under eating foods. You're under eating foods. And then what ends up happening is you tell yourself at the end of the day or at the end of the week that you have been good all day. Okay, so important to tell you the fact that food is not good or bad. You can eat any food that you possibly can and think of, but it's about making it fit into your macros for the day. I do recommend chocolate. I recommend dark chocolate, again, just due to the high magnesium content. What I will also note is magnesium is found in cacao powder. Cacao powder is something that I do regularly use daily because of its antioxidants, but more so even its magnesium content. 15 grams of cacao powder is 40% of your overall magnesium. I have a discount code for new and naturals. You don't have to use those, but the whole idea of it is you can, and it's what I do. And what I do is what I recommend. In a cup, 15 grams of maca powder. Then you can add in some cacao powder, 15 grams of cacao powder, followed by maca powder, and a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. That is magnesium. That is the pink Himalayan salt with natural electrolytes. These are things that you can do yourself, and what I recommend. And I do enjoy the taste of, I suppose, pink Himalayan salt, warm water, but I must tell you, mix it up with cold water first, inevitably, so it helps mix together well. Otherwise, you have a lot of these clumps in your mug, and nobody likes it lumpy. Not even me. Smooth. We're looking for smooth operators. So I suppose that is inevitably the tips that I'm recommending to anybody to increase their reduction in body fat to come out the other side of that plateau. And if anybody is looking, I suppose, for any tips and strategies, send me a message, or is looking to work with myself in the next and upcoming organic fitness program, send me a message directly, and I'll hook you up with the latest training. In on top of that, dieting down on your nutrition, and also it's more of a lifestyle approach. It's not that there's one strict certain type of food that you have to eat. I train vegans, I've trained vegetarians, I've trained a standard diet, and it's about finding what works for you, getting foods that you enjoy, that you can cook, that you can go and either do a little bit of shopping at a country market or grow a little bit of your own. And so that's, I suppose, this week's podcast. And we'll just recap on how much protein can we absorb. I recommend 30 grams per meal. That's your aim, that's your target. Whether you track your foods or your macros or not, that's totally up to you. Okay, but remember, we do consume protein for not only for protein synthesis. The word absorption, it typically is actually important in that question, because we absorb all the protein that we consume on a regular basis, but we use it for other different things, such as skin health and regulating hormones are the two other main things that I focus in on. Healthy fats. How much flax seeds should you consume a day? I recommend 15 grams, and flax seeds being a great omega-3 ratio compared to its 6, and add that to your diet. Also a classic for overnight oats, we said, that I have steeping right now, can't wait to have those. Is cheese fattening? No, it certainly isn't. And in fact, that is important to remember, that no one food is fattening. It's your overall consumption of foods throughout the day. And then still struggling with a plateau, focusing on intensity, your training, quality, and adding in finishers, and increase the amount of time in your finishers. That inevitably would help you get into a calorie deficit, tapping into your fat stores, getting into the fat burning zone. Elevate your heart rate is key too. All right. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it 100%. And inevitably, the likes of that cacao powder, I have a discount code, which is Colman 15 if you want to use those. New Natural is an Irish product based in Galway, and they were happy enough. I was happy enough to get approached, and it's something that I said that I use. You can gain advantage of it too. Totally up to you. Being healthy just got a little bit cheaper. Use that at the checkout. Colman 15. All right. As I always finish these episodes with, stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic.